Number 1.
Serena was last seen sometime during December 1996 at her family's residence in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Serena's mother, Robbie Ann Floyd, was last seen by a neighbor as she packed boxes into her blue van outside of the family's home on Winter Park Drive. The neighbor said that Robbie told her she was driving to Alabama to visit her ailing father. A woman was apparently with Robbie at the time. The neighbor claimed Robbie introduced the person as her mother, but Robbie's mother stated she had not visited her daughter's home in several years. The neighbor also said that Robbie was acting as if she was in a hurry. Serena and Robbie were accompanied by two of Robbie's other children, Brent Hughes and Brentany Hughes, as well as Robbie's younger sister, Jennifer Hughes. None of the family members have been seen again. Robbie was married at the time to Jason Allen Floyd, whose nickname is Shane. She and Jason had a son together, Brandon. Jason and Brandon remained at their Fayetteville residence after the other family members had left. Jason told authorities that Robbie had driven the others to Sylacauga, Alabama, and he spoke to her shortly after she departed North Carolina in 1996. He claimed Robbie was staying at a motel near her father's home and promised to call him again several days later. Jason stated he never saw his wife or any of the other missing family members again. Authorities learned that Robbie and Jason were having marital problems in 1996. They had apparently reconciled prior to her disappearance but had been separated for some before December 1996. A neighbor told investigators that Jason and Brandon continued to live at the family's residence until February 1997, but then left the area. She also stated that Jason mentioned he and Robbie were divorcing. Jason is not believed to have been involved in the family's disappearances. Robbie did not maintain constant communication with family members in 1996. She, her children and her sister were not reported missing until August 1998 as a result. Relatives in Alabama stated that Robbie and the others never arrived in the state. Her mother maintains that it would be uncharacteristic of Robbie to voluntarily disappear for an extended period of time. Her mother also said that Robbie had planned to move her ailing father to North Carolina in 1997 and care for him. Her father died in 1998. There has not been activity on any of the missing family members' social security numbers since 1996. Robbie never registered her van and did not renew her driver's license since her disappearance. Authorities do not know what led the family members to vanish. Their cases remain unsolved.
Number 2.
Milena and her sister, Philoma, were last seen standing at the bus stop in their village of Isao on the island of Saipan in the Northern Mariana Islands at 6:10 a.m. on May 25, 2011. They were sitting on a cement slab waiting for the 6:30 bus to take them to Cagman Elementary School. They missed the bus, however, and have never been heard from again. When the girls failed to arrive at school, their teachers marked them absent. Their families didn't realize they were missing until 3:30 that afternoon, when they didn't come home as scheduled. Their disappearances were reported to the police at 5:30 p.m. Philoma and Milena were both carrying backpacks at the time they vanished. One is described as dark-colored with the owner's name and telephone number written on the straps. The other is a purple Dora the Explorer pack with writing on the shoulder straps. Both backpacks disappeared along with the girls and they haven't been located. Philoma and Milena lived with their grandparents at the time of their disappearances. They had since 2007. At the time they went missing, their father was living on the island of Pohnpei in the Federated States of Micronesia, and their mother lived in Guam. Their mother returned to Saipan after the girls' disappearances to assist in the search. Investigators ruled out the sisters' parents and most of their other relatives as suspects in their cases. Alan Santos Agwin, a former firefighter, is a person of interest in Milena and Philoma's cases. He is related to them by marriage, and he refused to take a lie detector test about their disappearances. In 2012, Agwin was arrested for domestic violence in California. He remains in custody. Authorities believe Philoma and Milena were abducted by someone outside their family. An extensive search has turned up no sign of them, and their cases remain unsolved.
Number 3.
Southern was employed as an English professor at a community college in Chicago, Illinois in 1987. He was a member of Conscious Development of Body, Mind and Soul, a spiritual movement founded by Terry Hoffman. Many consider the sect to be cult-like in its beliefs. Southern's status position rose in the organization during his membership, and he began teaching classes and leading meditation groups. He also visited Hoffman's home in Dallas, Texas. Former participants with the organization said that Hoffman often held meditation sessions with selected members. She apparently said that she was being attacked by Black Lords and requested that the members build a psychic shield around her for protection. The former members stated that many of the session's participants became fearful of the Black Lord's supposed attacks and developed emotional problems as a result. Southern's family discovered that he was walking the streets of Chicago and speaking incoherently during 1987. Southern was hospitalized afterwards. His family visited him daily, as did two members of Conscious Development of Body, Mind and Soul. Southern resumed his normal routine after his release, but friends said that he seemed disenchanted with Hoffman. Nevertheless, he remained active in her organization. Southern planned to travel to India for 2 weeks in December 1987 during his college's winter break. His mother said that she was concerned about him during this time and offered to visit with him prior to his scheduled departure. He declined and told his mother he was simply not feeling well. He has never been heard from again. His family checked his residence after Southern's scheduled arrival time home passed without a word from him. They discovered that his passport was inside his house and no entry stamps from India were recorded. A vial of a drug similar to the poison cure was found inside one of Southern's drawers. His winter dress hat and coat were folded inside out and placed on a ceremonial stool. Southern's family later learned that this was a Nigerian tribal symbol for death. His relatives also located 2 poorly written notes which appeared to be Southern's wills. There was no sign of him inside the residence. Hoffman told Southern's family she was not involved in his disappearance. She has never been charged in connection with Southern's case. Almost a dozen of Hoffman's associates have died untimely deaths through the years, many by suicide. Hoffman was named as beneficiary in several of the cases and collected thousands of dollars in cash, property and other assets. One family filed a wrongful death suit against her. Authorities do not know if Southern chose to leave of his own accord or if other forces were at work. It is possible that he suffered another emotional breakdown that served as the catalyst to his disappearance, but nothing is certain. His case remains unsolved.
Number 4.
Stephanie's mother gave her money for a snack and dropped her off at the Chalice Bowling Alley in Chalice, Idaho on October 11, 1993. She went bowling with friends, then departed. She was last seen walking on Highway 93 towards Chalice High School at approximately 6 p.m. that evening. The school was across the street from the bowling alley. Accounts differ as to whether Stephanie was going to the high school for soccer practice or whether she was heading for her family's residence, about 500 yards away. She has never been heard from again. When 9 o'clock passed and she hadn't come home, her parents notified the police. An extensive search covering 7,000 square miles in 2 counties turned up no sign of her. A yellow pickup truck with red pinstripes was seen in the area around the time she vanished and may be connected to her disappearance. Keith Glenn Mark Hescock has been investigated for possible involvement in Stephanie's case and also the disappearance of Amber Hoops. Hescock kidnapped a 14-year-old girl from outside her home in the early morning hours of June 5, 2002. He had known her family. The girl was able to escape that afternoon when he went to work, leaving her chained to a bed in his home. When the police attempted to arrest him, Hescock fled in his vehicle and led them on a 40-mile high-speed chase, which ended at a dead-end road in the Big Hole Mountains. There he shot and killed a police dog, shot and wounded an officer, and then committed suicide. Hescock had previously worked for Hoop's grandparents, and his neighbor says he was hunting in Chalice, Idaho, the weekend Stephanie disappeared from that location. He also owned a yellow pickup truck similar to the one that may be connected to Stephanie's case. Authorities have not been able to link him to either disappearance, however. His only criminal record in Idaho had been for poaching, but he had felony convictions in other states. Stephanie's case remains unsolved. She has 3 younger sisters and is described as a tomboy who was part of the youth bowling league and enjoyed going hunting with her father. Her parents divorced in mid-1994, and both of them are now deceased. Her mother died in 1997 and her father in 2012. Authorities have 5 to 10 persons of interest in Stephanie's case, none of whom are family members. They believe she was taken against her will by a stranger.
Number 5.
Abrams and her father waved to each other as they passed each other on Goodenough Road during the early evening of October 4, 1990, in her hometown of Beecher, Illinois. That's the last time he or anyone else saw her. She has never been heard from again. Abrams' vehicle, a red 1989 Dodge Daytona hatchback, turned up 11 hours later in Harvey, Illinois, with the doors locked and keys still in the ignition. Her camera was in the car, but authorities located no trace of Abrams at the scene. A witness said two men in a tow truck dropped the car off at 10 p.m. At 3 a.m., a neighbor called the police to report someone breaking into the car. Investigators then linked the car to Abrams. 3 days after Abrams vanished, her purse was found in a residential area 3 blocks away from the car's original location. Whoever took it left her wallet but took the credit cards from inside it. Abrams dated a married police officer, Anthony Marquez, beginning in 1987. Her family wasn't aware of his marital status. They met while she was working at a McDonald's restaurant, and he convinced her to join the sheriff's department. They hired her as a deputy in January 1988. In October of that year, Marquez allegedly smashed a car while Abrams was behind the wheel and her mother was in the passenger seat. She ended a relationship with him, and in November she filed a complaint against him, saying he'd harassed her and slashed her vehicle's tires on 4 occasions. Marquez was charged with criminal damage to property, but the charge was dismissed for lack of evidence in April 1989. The sheriff's department terminated Abrams in December 1988, 2 weeks before the scheduled end of her probationary period. A short time later, Marquez filed a criminal complaint against her, alleging harassment. The complaint was dismissed, but Marquez filed additional harassment complaints against Abrams in the summer of 1989. She was arrested several times that year, including in May for disorderly conduct and in August for reckless driving. Marquez claimed she'd tried to run him off the road. No charges were brought in the disorderly conduct case, and, in October 1989, a jury found Abrams not guilty of reckless driving. In November 1989, Abrams got an order of protection against Marquez. She accused him of stalking her and falsely claiming she'd smashed her vehicle into his. The order was extended until November 27, 1990. In December 1989, Abrams filed a federal lawsuit against Marquez and 7 other members of the sheriff's department, alleging wrongful termination, sexual harassment and violation of her civil rights. She was scheduled to give a deposition in the case on October 22, 1990, but vanished 18 days before that. It's unclear whether Abrams' problems with the sheriff's department contributed to her disappearance. The Will County Sheriff's Department initially investigated her case, but the state police took over the investigation shortly after it began, citing a possible conflict of interest. The police department fired Marquez in December 1990. He still lives in the area. Abrams' lawsuit was dismissed in January 1991 because the plaintiff could not be located. One theory is that Abrams disappeared deliberately to spite Marquez, but most investigators think she met with foul play and is now deceased. Her family believes Marquez was involved in her disappearance and stated Abrams told them if she ever went missing, he probably had something to do with it. She graduated from Sandberg High School, Moraine Valley Community College and Governors State University, and planned to eventually go to law school. Her case remains unsolved.
Number 6.
Bro was last seen after 10 p.m. on August 28, 1991, in the vicinity of the 100 block of Bernard Street in Houma, Louisiana. That evening he went to the Easy Does It Club on Bernard Street to attend an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. He was secretary of the local chapter. After the meeting he stopped at a convenience store to purchase a gallon of milk, and this was the last time he was seen. Bro's silver 4-door 1988 Ford Tempo was found locked and abandoned 2 days later, parked across the street from where he was last seen. His wallet was inside the vehicle, as was his personal checkbook and the checkbook for the Alcoholics Anonymous chapter, and a brown bag containing $165 in Alcoholics Anonymous funds. The vehicle was low on fuel, although Bro had purchased $10 worth of gasoline just hours before he vanished. The car keys were missing, as was the carton of milk Bro had just bought, and neither of these items were ever found. He has never been heard from again. A witness who knew Bro reported seeing him on the same day his car was found. He didn't realize Bro was listed as a missing person. He said Bro was unkempt and dressed in old, badly fitting clothing, which is uncharacteristic of him, and he appeared to be nervous. He may have been accompanied by 3 men in a red compact car. Another witness also claimed to have seen Bro in a red compact car with 3 males. Bro was employed as a salesman at Earl Williams' clothing store at the time of his disappearance. He had worked there for over 30 years. He battled an alcohol problem for many years and had 1 prior drunk driving arrest, but he stopped drinking 8 years prior to his disappearance. If he started drinking again, he could have developed memory loss. Bro had been divorced for 17 years prior to his disappearance, but he had a good relationship with his ex-wife and 2 daughters. His family believes he was taken against his will. He was declared legally dead in August 1998, but his case remains unsolved.
Number 7.
Adam was last seen in Towanda, Kansas, sometime during the late spring or summer of 1999. He lived in the Pine Ridge Mobile Home Park with his adoptive parents, Douglas Raymond, Doug Herman and Valerie Janelle Herman. Photographs of them are posted with this case summary. Adam had been taken from his biological parents and placed in the Hermans' care when he was 2 years old, along with his 2 younger siblings, and the Hermans later adopted him. He was homeschooled, but his younger siblings attended public school. Doug and Valerie later stated Adam ran away from home during the first week of May 1999 after Valerie spanked him with a belt. They said they were afraid to report him missing because they thought they might get in trouble with the authorities for the spanking and would possibly have their other children taken away. Adam had been placed in a children's home for 2 days in 1996 after Valerie spanked him with a belt and caused bruises. The Hermans stated Adam ran away frequently and, after he disappeared in 1999, they assumed he was either homeless or with his biological parents. They continued to collect adoption subsidy payments for Adam, approximately $700 a month, until his 18th birthday. When they declared bankruptcy in 2002, they listed him as a dependent. They filed for divorce in 2003 and listed Adam on the divorce documents. The divorce case was later dismissed. Adam's disappearance didn't come to police attention until late 2008 when his adoptive sister, Crystal Espinosa, contacted law enforcement with concerns about the child. She had tried to locate him through the Kansas Department of Social and Rehabilitation Services (SRS) and discovered the SRS believed he'd lived with the Hermans until he turned 18, something Espinosa knew was untrue. Adam's adoptive older brother, Justin Herman, says his mother physically abused Adam, but he says he never saw Doug hurt the child and that sometimes Doug tried to stop Valerie from abusing him. Justin said he once called the police after Valerie threw Adam against a wall and pulled his hair, but by the time authorities arrived his mother had persuaded him to say he'd made up the story. Police have no record of this call, but other relatives corroborated Justin's abuse claims. An aunt says Adam was chained to a bathtub faucet the last time she saw him, and Valerie's mother says she abused Adam, locked him in the bathroom, and forced him to sleep in the tub. Espinosa claims she saw her mother kick and hit Adam and step on him. Both of Adam's adopted siblings said he was locked in the bathroom and denied food. They occasionally sneaked in food for him. Valerie denies having mistreated Adam, though she admits she occasionally spanked him and sometimes used a belt. She claims psychiatrists believed Adam had an attachment disorder and either bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, and that the doctors advised her to lock Adam in the bathroom at night because he had threatened to kill his parents. After Adam's disappearance, Doug and Valerie told their family he'd been given back to the care of the state. At one point they claimed he'd been placed in a state mental hospital. Adam's biological sister, who was adopted by another family, last saw her brother in around 1994. A year or two later he sent a Christmas card, and this was the last contact she had with him. She says she spoke to Doug and Valerie several times after 1999, and they told her Adam was fine, but she never actually spoke to him. Eventually the Hermans asked her not to call anymore. In July 2010, Doug and Valerie were charged with felony theft. This was because they continued to accept public assistance payments for Adam after he was no longer in their care. In addition to the monthly adoption subsidy, they also claimed Adam as a dependent on their taxes. The total amount was $52,800. In June 2011, they reached a plea agreement with prosecutors, admitting to wrongfully accepting $15,488 in subsidies for Adam between November 2003 and July 2005. Doug was sentenced to 9 months in prison and Valerie to 7 months. They were ordered to pay restitution and a $2,500 fine each and be subject to probation after release. In July 2016, 17 years after Adam's disappearance, Doug died of natural causes in Grove, Oklahoma. He was 61. Adam is mentioned as a survivor in his obituary. Valerie has been released from prison and lived in Grove with her husband at the time of his death. Investigators named Adam's adoptive parents as suspects in his case and stated it's possible murder charges could be brought even if Adam's remains are never found, or that charges could be brought for the Hermans' alleged abuse of Adam prior to his disappearance and the fact that they failed to report him missing. Police searched both the Hermans' later residence and the mobile home where they lived in 1999. No human remains were found, but authorities said they discovered the answer to one of the questions they had. They declined to elaborate on what it was they uncovered. In 2020, a man on Twitter and YouTube claimed to be Adam and said he had a victim of sex trafficking and that his traffickers had mutilated him and removed his facial freckles and the birthmark at his waist. Police looked into this and stated the man behind the tweets wasn't Adam and was, in fact, a former employee at the Butler County Jail named Stephen Chadwick Smith, who was born 8 years after Adam. Investigators have been unable to find any evidence that Adam is still alive. His case remains unsolved.